It's funny that you mentioned that, is that a lot of people kind of make the mistake a lot especially in the financial and the bookkeeping. It's just sometimes they lose and they kind of confuse things. So I guess like for you, could you define for maybe the audience, like what is bookkeeping? Like what is that? What does that mean really in a business?
Yeah. No, it's true, because there's a lot of different words that are used in finance field and they kind of get used interchangeably sometimes. But bookkeeping is the very, very basic, action or technology of recording transactions that happened. And the reason you do that is so that for two reasons. One, and the most important reason, so you can make correct decisions with your company. If you don't know how much money you're making, or you don't know what areas of your company are making money. For instance, if you have a few different revenue streams, you have to know how much revenue is coming from each area, so you know what to strengthen. And then you have to know what you're spending your money on and for what areas of your company, so that you can see the profit per revenue stream. Because how do you know when you should hire someone? How do you know like a next person? How do you know what's a good investment? How do you know if your marketing is effective? You need to know your numbers. So that's the first reason you need it is to manage your company. Bookkeeping also includes, things like payroll, sales tax, like kind of everything in the basic level of finances that's not taxes, as far as like your annual IRS taxes, which is going to be your tax preparer, your accountant, your CPA. And then there's kind of this like piece level in between that could be considered accounting or bookkeeping, which is kind of like higher level, like, tracking your assets and how much value they lose, and certain like entries that you need in your books for tax purposes, that sometimes the bookkeeper will do it and sometimes your CPA or tax preparer will do it. So it makes sense why it gets confusing. But in general, the basic definition is going to be tracking where you spent your money, entering historically all the transactions. The other reason, of course, is to file your taxes. If you don't have that information, you can't file your taxes. The other things that you can't do if you don't have bookkeeping is get investors, get loans, sell your company, have tax planning. So it's basically like the basic of everything in accounting, finances, taxes, everything and anything else, whether you're in mergers and acquisitions, whether you're in insurance, whether you're in taxes, all these things, all of them are going to say, can I get a P&L and balance sheet? P&L meaning profit and loss, before they'll do anything else. So it's like, you've got the very, very basic, beginner foundation steps, and then everything else goes on top of that. And none of these will come into place, or if they do, be correct or effective, unless you have your basics really, really strong.
Right. And it's interesting that you put this together, because just so you know, a little my background is I've worked in a lot of different fields. Like I'm in the film industry, I'm in podcasting, I've actually worked at a dentist's office. And one of the funny things that I found that like people have the most trouble with is their finances, and like either putting it there, or maybe it was there, then it's not there anymore and it kind of gets misplaced, or people forget. Like, why do you suppose that happens? Is it, that people kind of lose track of all these things where like it should be there, but it's not? Or like maybe they think about, maybe they don't think about it as much. Like, is it actually valuable to have those things, in place first?
In place first before what?
Your business. Like if the person's in a business or who owns a business, to like actually run and roll through these things. Like, a lot of people make the mistake of just, maybe they don't have it, or they have it, but it's not fully set up yet. Or like it's almost one of those places where it's like, if there's so much confusion in one place in any company, that's probably one of the biggest places where there's a lot of confusion. Like, why do you suppose that is?
Well, there's a few different things. One is that it's been made very confusing. Like taxes are confusing. There's nothing that you can say about that that's not confusing. It's like, right. You try to understand. I posted this reel the other day, and it was like, these two like Arabic guys, and one was the IRS, and he's like, You have to pay your taxes. Okay, how much do I owe? Habibi, you have to figure it out. He's like, why do I have to figure it out? Don't you know how much I owe? And he's like, you should know how much you owe, but don't you know? Yes. Well, we know. Well, can you tell me? No. Well, what if I'm wrong? Then you go to jail. So it's like, it's not that bad, but it is confusing because you've got tax brackets, you've got tax write-offs, you've got credits, you've got deductions, you've got different laws that apply in different situations. It's a lot of rules. And then the state that you're in has rules. The country you're in, the US has rules. And then maybe the city, district, or whatever that you're in has other rules having to do with payroll and stuff. So it's very understandable why it's overwhelming and confusing to people. It's even confusing to me. The taxes sometimes, like I have CPAs and stuff that I can ask questions to. But the bookkeeping part is generally not confusing. But because it's connected to taxes, it becomes confusing and it's kind of scary for people. Or they don't have, they have words that they don't understand in it. Like, what is accounting? What is bookkeeping? What is a profit and loss? So obviously when you have words you don't understand in an area, it makes it hard to confront that area. And they also have a lack of knowledge of how to do it. Let's say you have someone who goes to school there for film or whatever. They're like, okay, good. I'm going to go start a company as a podcaster, or they're a communications major or whatever. And then, or they even go work in Hollywood, but they're getting paid $10.99. They own a company now and they don't know what to do. What does that mean? How is that different than being an employee? So you have to get help from someone who knows, and there's software you can use. There's lots of different software. QuickBooks, obviously, being the most common one that we know about. And, when you're just starting out, you might not need or have the finances to afford a full-time bookkeeper, but you can ask for a consultation. You can go watch you could go watch all of my podcasts, my YouTube, whatever, or ask for a consultation, or just learn enough that you can be carved over the area. Because you don't need to know everything about bookkeeping and accounting in order to be able to run your company or be, do your freelancing.